Yeah, no, come on up.
Let me be passive aggressive.
Social distancing.
Hello, TrotCon, and welcome to Keeping Friendship Magic Live. This is going to be a live recording of our podcast, which took a little hiatus here, but we're back with a live episode from TrotCon Online. I'm going to start it off with, obviously, all of us are celebrating with our face masks here. As you can see, our variety here. And we started the hashtag at opening ceremonies, and we're going to keep it going. So that's lovely. That's so lovely, Kermit. So I'm going to take a quick selfie of the two of us here, and that's going to get posted after the panel. Oh, yeah. Remember, tweet it out, hashtag face masks are sexy, because they are. And we're going to talk about that later in the panel. For now, I'm gonna let you see our faces. So, while Kermit here gets his off, welcome again to the Keeping Friendship Magic Live podcast. My name is Forward Progress here, founder of the Keeping Friendship Magic Project, lover of TrotCon and all things convention and fandom. Keeping Friendship Magic, if you're not familiar with what we do here, what we do is we talk about all topics relating to fandom and the world around us and approach it through a social science and experiential perspective here. I'm joined today by two of my favorite people in the world. I'm going to introduce them now. To my left, I don't know what shows on your screen, might be right, is one of my best friends in the world, Mr. Kermit the Grog.
Thank you. Real excited to be here. Always a good time when we're chatting about stuff. So let's do it.
All right, and also joining us today is motivational speaker, certified yoga instructor.
Certified G.
You may know her as Riftwing, as Brass Knuckles, RiftwingDesigns, however you want to go by today. This is a wonderful human being, and welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much. I'm glad to be here. Hi, TrotCon.
Hello, TrotCon Online. So, today's topic, what we're going to get into, I'm going to introduce this like this. I came up with this topic a year ago. Back in 2019, I came up with this topic here of overcoming adversity through fandom, which sounds very straightforward, but we have learned that this can take so many different directions here. So I had this idea in my head since 2019, and we were going to do this live in person at the actual event in Ohio, and then 2020 happened. So, I don't know how to better phrase it than that. 2020 happened. So, that being said, things changed, but we're still doing the same topic because I honestly feel like it is more appropriate now than ever to have this conversation here. So, like I said, we're going to be talking about overcoming adversity through fandom. So, I'm going to open this up to our two guests to start with here. Obviously, we've all been parts of fandoms here, various ones. Obviously, My Little Pony calls to all of us here, but we have other ones here, whether it be furry, anime, what have you, that we've been a part of here. So I want to throw this out to everybody about examples of a time in your life or things where you've been able to overcome adversity through fandom, through being a part of fandom or pop culture references, etc. And anybody can take it to begin with.
All right, I'll start.
Floor is yours.
But so for those of you that know Brass Knuckles, this may not be a new story for you, but I'll reiterate it, especially because Brass Knuckles hasn't been to many conventions since the last BronyCon, which oddly enough was one of the last BronyCons before COVID. So go figure. Very interesting. Yeah, so I was a fan growing up of many things. The number one was anime, and I went to Otakon, and I was like, this is crazy. There's so many people. Like, Otakon as the first convention is not good. Tens of thousands of people. And I was a very shy, nervous person back then. And I saw these panels. I thought, this is amazing. I'm glad to be an attendee. Never back then would I have thought that I would be a panelist or a guest of Keeping Friendship Magic. So, what happened? The answer is the fandom empowered me to try to be a speaker and to give presentations. And part of that was outside of the Brony fandom, I also joined Toastmasters International, which is a public speaking organization that gives you an opportunity to practice in a really friendly environment. And all the clubs are virtual right now, so if you want to join one, let me know. Small plug, sorry, but they helped me to get my confidence. And then going to a Brony convention, the first year as Brass Knuckles, getting up on the stage, I spent months memorizing the entire hour-long script. I would go on walks and go through the entire script because I was worried about being nervous. I was worried about what I would say. I was worried about how the audience would react. All of that to get up on stage and to do it the first time and to realize I could do it. And that really just jump-started everything. And the funny thing is, you're always worried about how you look to others or how embarrassed you might be. And the best part about the fandom is everyone in there are friends, right? That's the theme. And they all want to see you do good. So there's nothing to fear. And that positivity and the support from the Bronies, I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for them. So I love you guys.
It's fantastic.
Definitely. And we're so happy to have you, of course. I'll let you go, Mr. Kermit, here before I take the floor.
I guess in a sort of similar but kind of different track, when I had gotten into the fandom, I had just moved for the first time. I was commuting to college. I had barely any friends. I had some few, like, vestiges of, somehow people who went to my high school went to the college, but, like, freshman first semester was real rough. I was really kind of lost. I didn't know what I was going to do. I was terrible at talking and making friends with people. And then I see this little thing that my college had a Brony group, like, way early. This is, like, season 1. And from that grew this entire just amazing experience over the years of meeting all these amazing people and making all these friends and just, like, growing so much as a person through all of it and helping put things together and seeing all of it from that. And I feel like in a similar manner to Rifts, like, I wouldn't be here today without that. And sometimes I ponder if I'd be anywhere if that never happened to me. I always remember thinking back when I was, like, in that time in between of just, you see all these people out with friends, you're just like, gosh, that's never going to be me. I don't know how to do that. And then having just, like I said, meeting all these amazing people and making those connections through this show, and getting so much out of it like that, but also being able to give that to other people who probably were in a similar boat that I was just kind of an amazing thing to have happen to me that I'm still thankful for to this day. So I guess that's my take on the topic.
So I know I wanted to get Kermit here to talk because my story involves you. So you may, if you've seen my content before, you may have heard some of the story about how essentially the first fandom that I feel that I was ever attached to was the Brony fandom here. I've been fans of lots of pop culture things, but never really considered it a fandom until I realized about this community here. And it was when I went to my first BronyCon back in 2014, and I went by myself, knew nobody. I was like, oh man, I'm like the only Brony around here. Nobody else will get me. And I was a very shy kid. I was picked on a lot. I did have a couple of high school friends, but we were kind of like this odd clique. We were the group that, like, we didn't fit in with anybody else, so we ended up together.
Island Misfit Toys.
Yeah, that's really what it was. So, long story short, I really never felt like I truly fit in for the most part. And all of a sudden, here's people I'd never met before, and by just meeting them, they're like, hey, come play games with us, and I'm giving hugs to people from, like, states far away I never would have met otherwise. And I'm just like, oh my god. And similar to what Riff was saying earlier, I went back to college around that time, and I started figuring out social science. So that's how Keeping Friendship Magic really got started, is I figured out, oh my god, both these things can come together to make a whole and a project and something I believe in. So it encouraged me to overcome my shyness, overcome my sense of self-doubt. Granted, I still have a lot of it, and I still have to fight it every day. You know, I have clinical depression and generalized anxiety disorder, and I talk about it because it's a reality, and a lot of people go through these issues, and by silencing ourselves, we don't do us any good. We have to talk about these things as a culture. So getting out there was an important thing, and the biggest thing was after that BronyCon, I came home and I just started Googling, like, where are brony groups around me?
Where are brony near me?
And I'll
find Bron.
I found a little group with this guy in it. So I have more friends now than I've ever had in any other time in my life. And it's funny because, like, neither of us are in that group anymore, but it's the thing about the group was like the launching pad. We don't need the physical group. I think we both have realized that, is that allowed us to open up and meet these people and develop into more of an open space and discover more of who we are through the power of fandom. And that's an amazing thing. And that's really a lot of what I wanted to talk about today is there's so much we can do by coming together through fandom, through looking at things like My Little Pony, or through anime series, or what have you. So many different things that are part of pop culture here. And I know, obviously, Pony is a big one, and we all kind of just talked about a little bit with it here. But I know recently, too, we've had a lot of series that have kind of piqued us in that way. So I'm going to pull this up to people and just leave this open-ended of things where you've seen in pop culture and media, maybe other than Pony recently, that have gone, you know what, this is a good learning thing, or this is something I needed to see, or I think people need to see.
Riff, would you like to take the floor? And if you're not, I will take the floor.
Go for it.
Okay. I don't want to speak too much about it because spoilers, which is the trouble of now. But hey, we're all stuck inside. Now's a good time to watch things. I would say that we had just finished a couple weeks ago She-Ra, the new run of She-Ra on Netflix. That is an incredible series full of lessons, and not in this vein of Pony where you get to the end of the episode and like here's the idea. Because She-Ra is very
serialized. Yeah,
continuity based. That's, you said the word I wanted for real though. And you see a lot of people, you see a lot of characters very clearly learning lessons as the show goes on. In a very, like, I said clear. Like, in the moment, now when I have to talk and see myself on camera, is when I become very not good at talking.
It's okay. It's only a bunch of people watching us on the internet again.
I don't care about them. I'm talking to you.
Oh my god!
I'm the
We really do love you guys.
Friendship over.
Well,
here we go. I gotta learn my lesson by the end of this. That's what I'm talking about. She-Ra is really good at, without getting too much into it, I don't know how much I want to delve, of being in toxic relationships, of being the toxic one in a relationship, and being able to see that, which it's really hard to do. People, you go, oh, it's, you know, when we're watching in the show, we go, oh, it's easy. But it's not. And I feel like that show does a really good thing of how there's sort of like, this person's kind of being a crappy person because this person's being a crappy person to them, and how that kind of relationships can chain together, that you can kind of be in a toxic space with a lot of other toxic people, and if you would leave that, you would be better, and a lot of that, and all sorts of other things involved. But I think that show is exceptionally good for that kind of seeing and learning those situations in a really, I think even though it's a, you know, crazy fantasy setting with swords and weapons and adventure, in a very grounded way that felt very fitting to me, I guess. That's my take. Haha, yeah. Somebody
definitely.
Take the metaphorical microphone.
Yep, we watched it together, so I've got a lot of great things to say about She-Ra. I'm going to hold off on most of them because I'm literally talking about that show tomorrow.
Yes.
As part of our queer representation panel. So shameless plug, come see us at 2:30 tomorrow for that. But otherwise, I'm gonna let Rift, if there's anything you have in your mind about recent examples of things of overcoming adversity.
There's a lot that I could talk about. We were talking about Steven Universe before we started recording, and there are lots of good examples in Steven Universe. I want to mention Star versus the Forces of Evil,
Mhm.
which is a Disney series, and it's over now, so you can watch the whole thing. And it's just funny, and it's got like magic wands, and they've got warnicorns, which are like magical pegasi that fight people and do the buff brass knuckles thing. So obviously, I have to talk about them. Yeah. And what's interesting about that is as the series goes on, it's kind of like Adventure Time, and we can talk about Adventure Time too. It's kind of like Adventure Time where the series seems cute and funny and just, interesting. But then all of a sudden you're like, whoa, there's a serious plot. There's some serious love triangles. Like, what's going on? And the interesting part about it is that the love that is shown by the main character, Star, and her friend, Marco, they have to both acknowledge that they're in love and out of love, and that it's friends or not friends, or is just friends, still just friends. And all of those awkward conversations, like even the crushes outside of them, like each of them had crushes in the show. All of that weird, awkward, teenage, and honestly older relationships,
Yeah.
right? Like
Mhm.
relationships are, I think, one of the hardest things to get into and get out of and to
Oh,
deal with. And
yes.
that ties to the toxic relationships as
Yes.
well. How do you talk to people about the weirdness that it is, but without being honest? And honesty, loyalty, all of the elements of harmony, that's what gets you to a good place in any relationship. And the interesting way that they show it in Star Versus is just, it's just a joy to watch. And there's all kinds of cool dimensions that they go to, and lots of rainbows and unicorns, and it makes it in a way that you're like, oh, okay. And there's obviously shipping, the same as in She-Ra, and that's it just
Yeah.
makes it fun. So I would say that Star Versus is definitely a cool one to get into if you haven't yet. Do you guys want to talk about Adventure Time at all?
I mean, we can talk about it. I didn't see Adventure Time. I'm not equipped to talk about it, sadly. I can say, though, with She-Ra, Star Versus, that is another very fitting thing to our current times of finding the system you've inherited from your parents is completely janked up and messed up, and trying to navigate that.
You already beat me to my whole transition.
Ooh.
All right, guys, take it from here.
Somebody called it people that do good things because that segue was stolen.
So, okay, let's be real here. It's 2020. I really probably don't have to say more than that. It's 2020, and it's a scary, scary time out there. And we're dealing with things we never expected. We have a global pandemic. We have unrest here all over the nation. We have protests. We have people who are, trying to hold on to the old system but not making progress with new ways. And I hate to say this, but it's a reality. It's 2020, and we have Nazis. So,
yeah,
this is a reality of the world we live in, and it does feel a lot of the time like the world is falling apart around us, and it's really hard to stay positive right now. And I think that's the thing of why I want to talk about overcoming adversity through fandom today is we as a nation, as a world, are facing great adversity right now. All of us are facing adversity. We're facing COVID. We're facing unrest. We're facing inequality issues. We're facing so many things. So
we're facing the things in our own lives on top of all of that.
And that's exactly it. And
not to mention death.
Exactly. Well, and
disease.
Exactly.
Pestilence.
It's and I'll share a little bit here from myself because this has been a very scary time for me. If you don't already know, I'm an immunocompromised individual, so I have to be extra careful throughout all of the COVID pandemic here. Luckily, I've been able to work from home, so I don't have to go out very much, but even going out is scary sometimes because I was telling them before we started this, I was on my way to a doctor's appointment just the other day to take my fiance in, who, as we talked about earlier, literally just had her surgery. So she's in a weakened state. Now, she's doing great, but she's still in a weakened state. She's in recovery. And I'm immunocompromised, and I'm taking her to a doctor's appointment. I didn't have a chance to eat, so I'm like, okay, I'm going to run into this convenience store and grab something quick. And there's like 6 or 7 people in this place without a face mask. And it was very unnerving. And it's a thing right now of, I'll be honest, it's part of the reason I talked about face masks to begin with earlier, is there is a reality in our nation right now where people are fighting back against the idea of face masks. And there's a very simple scientific fact that face masks, granted, they're not the end-all be-all, but they will help. That plus social distancing, plus not going out. There's a lot of things that are very simple things we can do that some people just aren't. And then it makes all of us go inside, what can I do? It seems almost overwhelming at times.
It seems like these people don't care.
It's a me against the world, and it gives you that sense of what can I do out there. And I've got a few things I want to say coming up, but I don't want to dominate all of this. And I'm just going to throw this out as a general question here of lately, and it doesn't have to be COVID, but we've all had things this year that have faced us. And I think if you guys have either an example or things that you kind of take personally of how do you face the current world the way it is and what keeps you going on a day-to-day basis. I know it's a loaded question.
No, I know what I'm going to say, but I never know if I should take like or be like Rift. I don't want to step on toes.
You take it this time. Go girl.
Something that I've had to both constantly re-remember and try to remind other people of is through all this of you don't have to shoulder it all on your own, and you don't always have to be quote-unquote on to deal with it. Sometimes you have to take care of yourself for a moment. You kind of got to shut yourself off and go, like, recover. Like, you aren't any good if you're... Because, like, I've had that problem, and I know other people have, where you're just like, I need to be aware of all the terrible things going on so I can do my part against it. And that is a very positive and noble thing to do, but, like, your body, your back can't take it. You can't, it drains you. It grinds you down. And you can't treat stepping away and taking your care of yourself for a moment as, like, oh, I'm copping out, or I'm showing weakness or something. Like, you gotta, at the end of the day, like, you gotta maintain your garden. And you can't do positive things in the world if you and your garden are a mess. Your mental garden. This is my metaphor that I stole from a Jan animation that I watched years ago. So make sure if it's really draining you down, take a break from social media. Like, just cut yourself off for a while. Do something that you really enjoy, that you can recenter yourself. I know that's kind of hard in our current climate, but, like, find those things. Separate yourself. Reach out to the people who you care about and care about you, and kind of, refill your buckets. Kind of recenter yourself, recover, and then, give that some hours, some days even. And then when you're feeling good, you can kind of re-enter the world. We're not constantly meant to run against this giant storm alone all the time. Like, take time for yourself. It's important.
Absolutely.
Because the world is not going to take care of you. You've got to do that. If you want to take care of the world.
Very well said.
Hashtag.
We'll come up with so many hashtags by the end of this convention.
Put that on a shirt.
We already had the hashtag that we broke the internet, so, I mean, let's just keep it going. But yeah, anything you want to follow up with?
Sure. I am the embodiment of positivity, right? Sunshine, rainbows, lollipops, all that good stuff. It's tough, even for me, and so I send out a monthly newsletter that comes out on the 15th of the month. If you're interested, message me. I'll be glad to add you. But that newsletter, I've been addressing my progress throughout. The first and the hardest part for me was to unplug from the news. Oh my gosh, right?
Yes.
It's all negative, it's all deaths, and we don't know the symptoms, and you're gonna die. So, like, the hypochondriac in all of us is freaking out already, whether you're immunocompromised or not. And I am also slightly, but not as bad as forward progress. But yeah, it's scary. And the more you read it, the deeper you go, and you just spiral, and you keep moving your finger and scrolling. And the scrolling is the hard part. So it's evil. B, this is where I'll throw it back to forward, because the idea is that it's the use of social media is addictive. The infinite scroll is what makes you want to find the one gem that's something that you're missing. Like your brain is just craving this good news and all this bad, but you want to keep reading the bad because you're like, oh my gosh, what's going on? Is it going to be...
Yeah.
And you just start
just
freaking out.
your empathetic, like, I don't know, maybe that's just my own take of, like, your empathy. You want to reach out and be aware and listen to these people having their, in the world having their struggles, and you want to be like, I'm being an aware, present human being that I can do my part.
So,
yeah. So how do you unplug from all that?
And it's difficult. So there's a lot of different ways we can kind of look at this. So I'm going to kind of delve a little bit into how your brain works here. So your brain is designed to protect yourself at all costs. It is basically set up... I love seeing you in the background.
I naturally will just hype man whoever's talking, so I'm doing it.
This is why I brought you on. I love you, man.
Protecting your brain, yes, continue.
Okay, so your brain wants to protect you, and this goes in multiple ways. Our brain is kind of wired very animalistic. It's very hardwired, dating back to times of just base predator and prey, of trying to survive out in the wilderness here. So it wants the information, in a sense of it wants it to, we want to protect ourselves by finding that information. But the other part to that is it also wants to constantly protect our own self-esteem. So sometimes information we get, while it may be true and it may be something we need to hear, our brain might have a tendency to reject the reality and the truth of what's going on because it doesn't fit with our current worldview. It's like your brain doesn't like that. If you get information that, like, let's say you're viewing the world like one way, and you're going this direction, and all of a sudden something comes in going this direction, and then it's like your brain just goes, ow, ow, no. A lot of times the tendency is to just kind of reject that notion. And
it's because we like shortcuts, right?
Your brain, there's a term called heuristics, which is literally mental shortcuts. Your brain thinks, it's like, I gotta process all this information. And there's a lot of information to process out in the world. If we didn't have shortcuts, okay, so I know this is a cell phone. And I also know it's 8:42 p.m. apparently. But I know this by looking at it. But why do I know that? Because my brain has already processed all this information about what a cell phone looks like, what it does, what mine looks like, all this, so I can just pick it up and go like that. If I had to stare at this and go, what is this? Well, it's black. I think this is a screen. Is that what they call a screen? What does it do when I push? If you had to do that all the time, we'd all be dead, to be blunt. I mean, like, we would never have climbed the food chain. We never would be...
We wouldn't have happened.
Exactly. I'll tell you a funny, actually. A few years ago, I gave a presentation on this very thing at a convention, and I asked for volunteers from the audience, which is actually something I took from Riftwing's presentations here that I loved.
Bar from the best.
And a friend of ours actually volunteered, and basically I pretended that I was a bunny, because it was Easter time, out in the woods, and I was just like, imagine me trying to just sit there and contemplate the world if we didn't have mental shortcuts. And I had him play a wolf. And he was out in the crowd, just like, and I'm like, just pretend you're a wolf and come stalk me on stage. And I was like, he's just gonna come right up and just like, walk through the crowd, and it would just be fun and silly. He spent like 5 minutes circling the crowd and walking around. This was Ed, by the way. So, and he was great though, and it was beautiful and wonderful, and I'm sure the crowd loved it. But there's a point to that, the fact that it did take almost 5 minutes, because if we didn't have this built in, this is what it would be. My message that I always take out, and it's something I had to really take to heart, and I'm still learning, is we know this. We know this is how our brain works, which means we can challenge these notions more through our own knowledge of what's happening in the world. When we get information that doesn't fit our worldview, we might have a tendency to neglect it right away. But sometimes it's like you have to go, okay, yeah, I neglected that, but maybe I have to think about that more. Or maybe I need to look into it. Maybe I need to research it more than what I saw in a meme on Facebook or what I saw scrolling through social media, which is one of those things of like when we see things that on social media that already reinforce what we're seeing. And some of it is to what we were talking about earlier is the negative things. If we already have our brain set where it's going to be negative and we're seeing more negative things, it's just going to reinforce that more and more. So it becomes more challenging.
Yeah.
I'm going to circle this back to fandom and actually specifically My Little Pony for a minute. Because when I was prepping for this panel, I'm going to give a shout out to my good friend Thoth Pencil right now. And also my friend Taylor, who is recovering from COVID right now. We love you. Be strong out there. I can't really get a good heart for the camera, but we love you.
And so bad at making
hearts. I am so bad at making hearts.
Watch here. Mini lesson to totally tangent. Thumbs, fingertips, heart.
Okay, I think I'm good.
There you go.
Okay,
you can break it.
We love you, Taylor. But they're both big Starlight Glimmer fans, and this is a thing that we see. Season 5 finale with Starlight Glimmer is she's forced to finally face this reality of that what she did was wrong, and that there is another way out there to make friends and to be part of a culture and to integrate herself and whatever have you. She has to face that, and she's given the opportunity to, and she accepts it. One season later, in the season 6 finale, she does the exact same offer to Chrysalis, and what does Chrysalis do? It's like, no, I will get my revenge on you.
I'm a true heel.
And we all know how that ends with in the finale. Well, in the next finale.
I will eat children unabashedly.
But that's a big lesson through pop culture here to take home throughout all of this is we have scary things, scary people, scary times right now. And we can either look deeper or we can reject instantly. But I think this also goes on another level because obviously we've had a lot of things coming out of people who, have some ways of thinking that aren't exactly in line with this fandom. We'll just
I thought you were going to say we're secretly awful, but I think...
I think that
works too. I think
but
I'm
that's the
thinking
thing
about
at this
something
point,
else,
though, it's not so
now.
secretly awful.
I'm talking about something else, but now I know what you're talking about.
It's out in the open at this point, and that's the thing.
I was talking about the speaking out movement, just to be clear, but that's not where we're...
No, but that is the thing we can talk about.
We'll get to your point first.
Is, there are people out there who have just been horrible, and let's just face it. And this zone here is this is not a zone for racism, it's not a zone for sexism, for intolerance, for bigotry.
Elitism.
It's elitism. Fantastic word. Actually horrible word, but you get what I mean. Like horrible thing, great term to use.
Fitting.
Fitting. Great word. I'm horrible. Anyway, I'm very much tend to be of a belief that, we talked about toxic people a little bit ago and how we've seen that through media, and I think all of us have had to deal with that in our own lives in one way, shape, or form. And I know, for me, I've had a couple people where I've realized that I've had to really think about what makes a toxic person, and is there such a thing as a toxic person? And what the term I've come up with, really, or the way that I look at it is, even if somebody may later turn out to be not a toxic person, they may be toxic for you to have in your life at that moment. And it's okay to recognize and accept that and say, I need to move on from this and do my own thing and explore my own path to better myself and to take some self-care.
And as a small add-on to that, that it is not your job alone or at all to quote-unquote fix or help these people.
And that's kind of why I bring up the Starlight and Chrysalis parallel here. Because the point was raised out. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I want to give a shout out to chat right now, because in the Discord chat, the rock named Tom, they were talking about the evil people that were in the Brony community, and hopefully they're gone, and decided to stop chatting about more of the ranting and the bad side of it. So thank you. The ability to cut yourself off and to realize when things are spiraling into negativity, that's applauded. And we're applauding you already in chat, but more applause for you guys, because yeah, that's part of it. When do you stop talking and start listening? And when do you say your piece and that's it? And then we're not getting enough people listening right now. So cheers, chat.
Absolutely. I think to circle back quickly with the Starlight Chrysalis parallel is you don't have to instantly give up on somebody necessarily. There could still be good in person. You can make the offer. But the bottom line is the other person has to accept that offer. Starlight accepted it. She owned up for what she did. She realized it. She made amends. She became a better, well, I was going to say person, but pony. Chrysalis rejected it right away. So that's that thing of like, you can try to help somebody, but they have to want to help themselves. And it is not your responsibility to keep going, because at the end of the day, you do have to take care of yourselves. You can influence things in the world, but there are simpler, more positive ways to influence the world. And I definitely want to I have a bunch of examples kind of loaded in the canon. The two of them, though, because I've been talking about it for days. But I'm going to open this up, though, because it's I have my examples, is what is a takeaway for both of you of ways you try to influence your small world around you, or what is it that you do, or the ways that you find successful to try to promote positivity on a day-to-day basis?
All right, you're getting me to talk about yoga.
We got her!
So
Yes. We got her!
Oh, if she didn't bring it up, I was running up at the end. So,
for those of you that don't know, during quarantine, I magically somehow was scheduling my yoga teacher training to be a certified yoga teacher, which I am.
Woo!
So I'm doing yoga tomorrow at 8 a.m. if any of you are awake that early, at 8 a.m. Eastern. And for those of you that are listening, it's going to be recorded on YouTube. In yoga, there are a lot of neat concepts besides just doing poses. And that's part of the really cool ways to think about yoga. And I had some time to think about how I think and to think about how I deal with adversity, right? So very, very, very interesting. So
yeah.
For progress, can you repeat the question one more time before I go off on my rant?
No, it's okay. It's essentially ways you find work for you to have an influence or influence positivity, project that out into the world, the crazy world we live in right now.
Yeah.
Whether it be from just, it doesn't have to be on a global scale, and that's the important thing.
Yeah.
If you need a moment, take it.
Yeah. Yeah, the positivity and building on that all starts with yourself. Mm-hmm. And there are lots of ways to do that, with first not wanting to harm anyone else, wanting to improve yourself, but also not competing with yourself as well, right? So realizing when you have to hold back. And in yoga, for me specifically, I realized that there are things out of my control. And when I was in training, because it was during COVID, the schedule was all out of whack. We had to do it online. Things were happening late or not happening or this or that. And instead of getting angry, instead of blaming the instructors, which I'm actually super thankful for because they were able to accommodate, but that's the mindset change, right? Going from, this is horrible, it's not working for me, we're not doing things on time, why are you guys not, wait a second, this is a global pandemic.
Yeah.
let's go this way.
Little problem.
Thank
little
you for
detour,
giving
little
us the
detour.
opportunity, for continuing to be mindful of the graciousness of everyone else that's involved. Bringing the positivity into your life is literally about that thought, and it's hard. Again, tying back to my newsletter, I had someone email me, they're like, thank you. I've been trying to be positive, but things literally they suck right now,
Oh
right?
yeah, absolutely.
It's not good. How do you do it? And the answer is you just have to keep going.
Mm-hmm.
But keep it in mind and realize that other people are there and they're supporting you too.
Absolutely.
That's a good way to put it.
Anything specific you would like to add?
No, Rift. I mean, yes, yes, but Rift kind of got the main thrust of it of like start with yourself, and you were getting at it, and I guess I want to put it in slightly different words of don't focus on what you can't do or what's holding you back. Focus on what you were able to do or what you can work towards. If you spend all your time complaining and being hopeless, nothing is going to happen. You can still feel those things, but you should take that, or maybe have a different feeling, and try to do something, however small, however perceived small to you it is, to try to make a difference in the world. And not that everybody has to be doing the same thing, so you have to judge yourself against anyone. I know we were talking about that earlier, of like, you don't have to be like, well, this person's doing this, I'm not doing that, so I'm not doing enough. Focus on what you can do. Like, you know, however small, like, I make my dumb little funny videos in an attempt to, like, brighten people's days. Even though they're silly, goofy little things that I make. But this is a small step I can take what's within my grasp to try to make people's lives a little bit better. And maybe over time that can work into something more, that I can say something bigger, that I can make more of a difference, that I can, you know, that I can do something. But it's not like I don't want to judge myself right away of like, well, I'm not doing enough, and constantly kind of holding it over yourself. Go. Mm-hmm. I want to do things. I want to do more. This is what I can do now. I'm going to keep trying to do things to the best of my ability. Rift, you had something there.
Oh, yes.
Tennis,
yeah,
back to you.
Well, the other little yoga point that I had is, it's because I mentioned it's not about the poses, it's about the mindset too. But when you're doing poses, like, you do not have to look as cool as the person on the screen. And nobody, well, few people tend to do that. They're like, look at this beautiful pretzel that I'm in. And we're like, I'm never going to do yoga because this looks horrible.
Mm-hmm.
It's about listening to yourself, whether it's your mind or your body. And that's what I'll be doing tomorrow morning. So really never competing with anyone, including yourself, right? Making sure that you do what is you and saying that's enough.
So much good. So much good from both of you.
Yoga is a personal journey that, I mean, I guess depending on where you do it, you do together.
Mm-hmm. And here's the thing, too. It's like, you can find your own path. It may not be through yoga. You may find other avenues that work better for you. I know all of us have kind of had some level of experience with yoga. Obviously, Riff immensely. I actually...
Gym leader level.
Yep. But the gym leader and we're just the trainers coming to challenge.
Guys,
I can't beat her in the yoga battle. I'm one of the first trainer that's got like 2 yoga pidgeys, and like, what am I even doing there?
Yep, I've got my Cubone out, and she's a water type leader. But you know,
yeah, Corsola is my favorite, by the way.
That
nice.
I did not know, and I love it.
Likewise.
I love it here. Umbreon all the way for me. But
ouch.
Sorry, did not mean. I just stepped on him. I'm sorry. Okay.
I support. Anyways.
So, now that we're done with our sidetrack here, one thing that was a genuine theme, general theme, however I want to say it, with what everyone was saying there, is there's a lot of feeling overwhelmed that can happen very easily, especially at a time like this, because there's so much going on in the world, and the problems can just be on a global scale at times, a national global scale, where it's easy to look at and go, what can I do? What can little old me do to impact the world? And I've struggled with this for years, because when I started this project, it was very much, it was kind of like, I want to make a change in the world. I want to change it for the better. And then it's like, okay, how do I do that? How does my little dog and pony show go to conventions and influence people? And I realized that is how I do it.
How you've been doing it.
You don't have to tackle the entire world. Thank you. You don't have to tackle the entire world. it is really hard to influence change in others. It is super hard to get somebody to not only change their attitudes and their beliefs. It's very hard. You might get somebody to change their actions sometimes, but to make a truly defining change in somebody to rethink how they thought about a topic and believe in a different cause or a different reality, it's hard. It's in preparation for tomorrow, earlier today I rewatched the Rocko's Modern Lifestyle and Cling special.
Oh.
Which is all about the difficulty in accepting change on multiple levels. And I'm not going to get too much into the LGBT issues now, only because we've got a whole panel on it tomorrow for 2 hours. So
what time is that?
2:30 tomorrow. We're going to be talking about this. But as somebody who has a transgender fiance, that's a thing is, people are going to change, and it's hard to accept at times. And the world needs to change and evolve, and it's hard to accept. And then you go, okay, the world is changing. What do I do? And what is my piece of the puzzle? How do I influence things in some way positively? And for me, I think the biggest thing I've learned is that if you focus so much on the macro, on the big picture, you're going to lose focus and you're going to lose your way. Not all of us are going to be able to be making speeches on Capitol Hill and getting bills passed and changing things that way. It's great to think about as maybe an ultimate goal someday to build yourself up to. But there's ways you can influence the world on a day-to-day basis. And it all starts with you and yourself and how you live life. The big thing I want to say here is my biggest thing that I like to talk about is creating the new normal. Creating the new norm. Social norms are such a big part of our lives and we don't even realize it. And essentially what that is just things that are just kind of ingrained in us. And a lot of times they're not real. They're just concepts, ideas that have just formed throughout our upbringing, throughout our interaction with society, with other people.
Throughout hundreds of years of human development in weird directions.
Is that we think this is how it is. And a lot of times it isn't really that way, or it shouldn't be that way. So what I have found is one of the easiest ways to impact change is in my life to live my life in the new norm. It's kind of the cliche quote from Gandhi, but be the change you want to see in the world. Live how you want to see the world. Create the new normal within yourself and your group. Fandom, too, is one of those things where it can seem so big. And right now, we're seeing some people who are in fandoms, in the pony fandom, and in various fandoms. I think no fandom is immune to this. Because the reality is, the issues we're going through in the pony fandom and other fandoms right now are mirroring the national issues, the global issues. We have to be talking about racism. We have to be talking about systemic racism, about sexism, about these things that have been ingrained in our system for so long and have been social norms. We have to deal with them. So we're not immune. Yes, there is a great basis in this fandom, but we're not immune to people being a part of the fandom who are going to think like that. And you cannot control, you cannot say somebody might like My Little Pony and might be, a racist, a sexist, a whatever. And you can't necessarily say this person is allowed to be a fan and this person isn't. But what you can do is you can influence your small group around you. We all have that in our group. You choose who you let in and who you don't in your own life, in your world. There is actually some studies on this about if you the way you can influence people, and it's on a small scale, but it actually grows big, is that you talk about something in a very in a way that you're passionate about. You might let's say you talk to 100 people, or you get it out on social media, and maybe only 2 or 3 people get it and believe it. Those 2 or 3 people might share that, and that hits 2 or 3 people.
And they'll tell 2 friends, and they'll tell 2 friends, and so on. and so on. And it's been years since I've watched Wayne's World 2. And back to you.
So it's actually, and it really is. It's a rule of 3. It usually goes out 3 rings wide. But think about that. You kind of
There's a song from My Little Pony that talks about that. One small thing can make a difference.
There's actually an episode. It's funny because years ago, the two of us did a panel together, and it was right after, I believe, a season 5 episode called Made in Manhattan, that we ended up adding to the panel. I don't even know if you remember this.
I have no memory of this panel. Like I'm wrapped in attention. Keep telling the story.
Okay.
No, chat's already there. Like, check it out. It says Skytail 127. The point of small but important change is driven home in season 5, episode 18, Made in Manhattan, where Apple goes to a mission on Manhattan. So take it from there.
There we go. So
Yep. Off.
It's Applejack is trying to do so much by herself. Rarity is trying to do, like, they're all trying to do so much by themselves, and they realize by the end of it is if everybody does a little bit, it makes a big change. It all adds up. So think about that. It seems like so daunting. Like, oh my god, we have people that we don't agree with, that are just being horrible or whatever. But that's not the entire fandom. And that's the biggest thing we all need to recognize, is a lot of times the majority of a group is along the same lines of thinking. That in-group is there. But the out-group often tends to be more vocal. And ergo makes it seem like they are the majority. And oftentimes they're not. And that's the thing. It's that, okay, I'm not going to be able to change that person. Or you might make that one effort, like Twilight did to Starlight. Or like Starlight did to Chrysalis. Is that you can make that one effort. And if they pick up on it, great. You can have that conversation and keep going. If they just won't, if they fight back, fine. I don't need you in my life. I'm going to move on. I'm going to make my world and my space better. Because if you have the norm around you and your group around you, the norm is this, where it's about equality. It's about acceptance. And it's about learning about other cultures. Because that's a big thing I've had to learn over the last couple of years, is as much as, like, I'm very much like, I've always been a person who's like I don't care what your race, your gender, your sexuality, whatever it is. But I've realized it's more than that. Because there's unique experiences that I never realized I need to know more about. And that's what I've been making a concerted effort to get more stories from people. Because, I know what it's like to be a minority, as being, a gay individual a gay individual living with HIV, marrying a transgender woman with clinical depression, generalized anxiety. Okay, I think it's safe to say I know a lot of those bubbles. But I don't know the experiences of so many other people. And they're all unique, and they're all valid. And that's why it's important for us to listen to each other, and it's important to promote that sense of, hey, I might not know, and it might challenge my worldview, but I want to listen.
Listen to people.
Listening is the first step.
Stand up to people who would not do that.
About a week ago, I shared a picture of a big banner I saw in a major intersection down in York, Pennsylvania, that basically was like, racism is not allowed here, or racism is not tolerated. I forget what it is, but it's basically something along those lines. I was at a very major intersection, and I was just like, it just made me so happy to see.
People are out there. Again, usually your very vocal minority in this case is, for the most part, all of the jerks and the terrible people. Don't let what you're hearing or what you think you're seeing get you down. We're cool homies are out there. We're standing up to them, and we can all stand up together.
And I'll say one more thing before I know we're going to have to start wrapping it up, and that is that it's also, we have to normalize people saying they're wrong, like Starlight Glimmer, and that they can change, because humans can do that too, guys. You can say, oh, I didn't know. Oh, this is racism. Oh, I didn't know all lives is not the same as Black Lives Matter. Like, allow people to say they're wrong and to say that's a good thing. Yes. Because only until we normalize people being able to grow will we all be on the same page.
There's an expression I've used in the past, and I've just kind of taken it as a personal motto, is it's one of the most empowering things you can do is in a moment is allow yourself to say, I was wrong, and that's okay.
Yep.
And grow from there. The other thing too is not expect myriads of change overnight.
Yep.
Or from yourself or from others. It's sometimes going to take time.
It will take time.
Yeah.
It's not a might. It will take time.
Fluttershy is a fantastic example of this. Back season 4, I want to say, with the Ponytones, when she finally starts getting over being able to sing in front of people, but then they're like, okay, let's do a big concert. And she's like, no. And then she's like, I'll get there. But baby steps. Baby steps. And that's...
But steps. That's the other part of this lesson here, is that it's baby steps, but it is steps.
Yep. It's going to take time, and it's going to take effort from all of us. But we can get through this. We can do this. And sometimes it sounds lame, and it sounds cliche. Yep. And you know what? I kind of don't care. Because I believe in it. I've had
also, you're very cliche.
I do it. I do it a lot. But you know what, though? It's... Can't even make the damn heart right. But, like, let me put it to you this way. In years ago, I would have been afraid to talk about so much. I would have been afraid to talk about, my diagnoses. I would be afraid to talk about my sexuality. I'd be afraid to talk about my partner and what she's going through. And a couple hours ago, we made the big announcement, and I had no worries in my mind whatsoever, because I knew there is a community out there who loves and supports, and that it's important for people to know that people are going through struggles, but are growing and getting through this. And sometimes that's all we need, is just that reality of knowing there's others out there. So it's easy to give up. It really is. And I've had my challenging moments. I mean, I'm not going to lie. It's hard right now. I can barely go outside. I have a partner who's recovering from surgery, and I have to be there with her all the time. She's in the next room, and I'm going to be running over to check on her the second this is done. But despite all that, and sometimes it's overwhelming, sometimes I take a step back. It's part of the reason we went on hiatus from the podcast for a bit. But we're coming back.
We got a bunch of dumb ones I headed up.
We actually have a couple of things we recorded that are going to come out as soon as I actually get my butt around to finishing editing. Where a couple of us just sat down and spewed out just whatever came out of our mouths, and it's going to be not the same as the podcast, but it's going to be something different.
From this episode,
it's Kermit's
Pop Culture Talk
Zone. Pop Culture Talk Zone. It's coming soon. So it's something. So we have things in the works, but I allowed myself to say it's okay to take a step back too, and it's okay to not push myself too hard. It's funny because I'm doing 8 panels this weekend. I only submitted 3, and I ended up doing 8.
Man can't let himself take a break.
But
biologically incapable of it.
A bunch of them I get to sit right next to my girl and do. And that's the important thing, is that as long as I can be here to take care of her and take care of myself, I know I can get through this. And I know I have the faith and the belief. We have 15 minutes, actually, believe it or not.
I thought you said it was 9:15.
9:30.
What?
We have an hour and 15 minutes.
Oh, I guess we started at 8:15, didn't we?
8:15, you got it.
And here we are throwing the brakes on this. We got more time.
No, well, we are going to have to say goodbyes in a little bit. I want to make sure we have plenty of time for that.
We have plenty of time for that.
But, anyway, point is, this is me just talking about myself, and I'm just one guy. I don't have all the answers. None of us do. And at the end of the day, you could watch us and be like, this is whatever, it doesn't apply to me. And that's fine. And it's fair. Find what does work for you. But my hope has always been, because this, at the end of the day, I don't do this for me. Some of this is me actually figuring out myself, but I do this because there is love out there in this world, and there's great people. And you guys deserve to be recognized for who you are, and deserve a place and a forum to grow. And I hope, at least in some way over the last couple of years, I managed to help someone. So, it's funny because we first met Riftwing a few years ago at a convention, and I had 2 Keeping Friendship Magics panels scheduled. They were 2 of my very first ones ever. And before that, before doing my panel, I got to see her panel. And I went, oh my gosh, I found someone who thinks like I do. And we connected, and we've been friends ever since, and it's been wonderful. And that's that thing is, sometimes you don't know when you're going to find people that are on that same wavelength. All you got to do is...
Well, it's interesting because technically we could have gone the other way and be like, oh, you took my stuff. Why are you talking about the same, you know? It could have been very headbutting and competitive. And instead we took the higher ground and said, hey, I really want to work with you. That was amazing.
We've gotten to work together a few times over the years, and they've all been wonderful. And that's that thing of, like, we're not always competing. You've brought it up several times, and that's... In our nature, there is a competitive nature because, again, as animalistic as our base is, there's a competition for resources, and you want to protect yourself and stay on top. But we've grown. We are social creatures as well. So we have to get through this together. They've done studies that show that you could be with a person who is negative to you, and even that is healthier than being alone. Now, that being said, do not seek out negative people.
You just opened a can of worms at the end of this panel that we don't have time to open properly.
No.
Close that can.
No, listen. The bottom line is that we can isolate ourselves, or we can try to grow even in a small bubble. And if all you do is your small bubble, you let in who you want, you keep out who you want. You don't have to keep in the toxic people. You don't even have to let them in to begin with. You control who you follow on social media, who you respond to, how you respond. You have the power of the enter key. You can type out what you're thinking and not hit the enter key. Sometimes you need to vent. Sometimes things are going to be vitriolic and whatever, and it'll make you angry.
Make an audio or video journal. That's what I used to do.
Mm-hmm.
It's good stuff.
You still need to get it out. We all need to vent.
Talking
The
out
world's
loud is
crazy.
Very helpful.
Yeah. But that's also why we have friends to talk about these things. I always say...
and professional help, too.
Yes,
exactly.
yes,
Oh,
correct.
yes. I would be nowhere without professional help.
Not everybody always has the wonderful luxury of being able to get that. But yes, that is also a very good thing to have if you are able.
Don't be afraid to ask for help, and don't be afraid to say, I'm slipping, or I'm afraid, or I'm not sure right now. Because we've had that, and I've had that, and I've had times where I've had to come to him, even within the last month or so, and be like, things are really hard right now, and I don't know what the next thing is. But sometimes all you need to do is get that out. Sometimes it might not be enough, and you might need more, and that's fine. But the important thing is not give up. There are good people. There is a good fandom out there. We can get through this. We can promote equality. We can talk about the fact that Black Lives Matter, that representation matters. It does. And we can grow from this. And it doesn't take away from who we are. We can grow along with it. I'm kind of getting at a loss for words right now, but the bottom line is that...
You said it very well, so...
Yeah.
No, you got it.
You spent your meter.
Yeah, I really did.
It was worth it. It was worth it.
I almost was about to make the outro at that point.
Here we go. Now, I will add quickly that this ties back to the beginning, where we said that everyone wants to see you succeed. There are very few people that want you to fail, that want you to spiral into depression and self-harm. Reach out. They will work with you. We're all here to support you. So never be afraid. People generally are very positive and want you to be successful and to find peace and happiness.
Most definitely. We got about 10 minutes left, so we may have already kind of wrapped it up, but I like to always end with kind of throwing it out to the crew of any last final thoughts they want to say, whether it be personal, on topic, off topic, etc. We've got the fantastic TrotCon audience here.
I was just going to say, I didn't know if we wanted to look if chat was holding anything up, if we wanted to discuss in a moment.
Well, actually, I'll say this. I know you've got chat going there, Rift. If there's anything that's kind of come up that you think would be a good thing to kind of pick up on here before we finish up.
There is a little bit going on in chat, you are correct. So there's been a discussion when we started to talk about the evils in the world and how Tom, again, wants to talk about how different people have definition, oh my God, I can't say that.
Definition?
Different
Okay.
definitions of terms.
Yes.
And that we need to be understanding of people's understanding of those terms.
That is so hard. We literally just had a conversation about this yesterday, about the term stan.
Oh, yes.
And getting to the bottom of the understanding of, and what makes this very fitting is, forward, until I had given them connection, despite the fact that he had all the pieces to it, not calling him an idiot, just his brain didn't think about it, didn't piece it together. So, should I unpack that, I guess, if people aren't in the know?
We can do it quickly.
I will do it really quickly. So, stan is currently being used as a slang term that I've seen it essentially as like a fan. I've thought it was only maybe just dawn of like, oh, that so-and-so is a stan of this, but I think you could also say, I am a stan of this. It essentially means that you're a fan of it. If it's from what I think it is, because why wouldn't it be? Stan is from an Eminem song back from, I believe, the early 2000s about a fan named Stan who, I think it's I've been learning about this, but I still haven't read it, a parasocial relationship with Eminem, and because he never hears back from him, because he thinks he's connected and he's friends, even though he's not, he's just a fan, he essentially commits suicide with his pregnant wife in a river, and it's a very, like, it's a very genuinely unsettling song in a very genuine, not jokey manner. Like, it's a really serious song.
Yeah.
And to see people use that term, going, it's like, you know where this is, like, the context where this is from, right? And it's what makes language really difficult, because if you don't make that connection, it's just another word that means something basic. But if you're coming in with that other understanding, and I assumed forward I just assume anybody who knew the song would make the connection, which is not how the brain works.
I never did.
Which is fine that he didn't, but like that's what makes being on the same page in communication really difficult, because people can have different meanings for different words, but where the key thing where that's really difficult is that where we don't know that we have different contexts and definitions for those words. And that's what makes communicating so difficult.
Skypause replies, I thought it was a mashup of stalker and fan. So again, different understanding.
That's actually kind of how it fits in.
It
actually fits into the song. The song, if you've never heard it, first brace yourself. It is not a good thing to listen to before bed.
Well,
but go listen to Stand by Eminem.
It's a cautionary tale.
It's heavy.
I guess you could say.
It's very heavy. You thought it was a JoJo, actually. You thought it was.
I thought it was from JoJo. I thought it was just
the chat mentioned JoJo too.
Yeah, that was why I wanted to ask people, because I could see it either way, or just it was like because it's.
I just assumed.
I stand near this, so you just chop off the D because it's the internet.
And that's the thing is about language, like you said, and we had this conversation before about language evolves, and one thing can start out with one meaning and turn into something different.
And you could be completely unaware of it, or it could mean something in certain spaces, and it makes communication kind of difficult.
And it's that fascinating thing, and that's why the discussions are important. And again, I've always said more discussions, less arguing will get us through these times.
Yep. Shout out to Shockbox, who also said meaning does change over time. So chat's totally jiving with you guys. Good conversation.
Absolutely.
It's something to be aware of.
Absolutely.
Especially as other words and contexts and all that sorts of fun stuff. So just sort of keep your ears and brain open and kind of be aware.
Well, and in the age of the internet, we're a global community. So somebody who might not have your language as their native language, that creates a whole other thing. Or, just in different parts of the world, even different parts of the English-speaking world, different words are going to have different meanings. Even different symbols, like little hand gestures and things like that, have different meanings. And it's easy to be like, okay, how dare you not know?
Or my way that I understand it is the way it is.
Mm-hmm. And
how dare they change it, young people? It's like, no, you can't. That was something that came up when I was talking about it. It's like, you can't go, how dare language change? That's what language is. It's a wild growing organic thing, and it moves and it shifts as it likes, and you gotta pay attention to it.
I'll say this, it's not your responsibility to necessarily fix everybody's perspective, but it also means, we don't necessarily always have to fly off the handle right away, because we don't always know the context. Now, granted, there are some things where it's just unacceptable, and we know that.
Yeah. So one more comment from Dark Angel. It's hard to talk about the current situation when you don't know how the other person will act.
Yeah,
it's true.
And especially online, especially dealing with people you do not know, makes that excessively hard, which is why I very much do not take part in any conversations on the internet with people that I'm not in some way familiar with. That's my own personal kind of credo. I
know a lot of people in the community, and I've made lots of small connections, I guess you could say, where I know them and I know of them, and I feel that they are genuinely good people from what I know of them. But there's a lot of things where I don't know the core of their person. And, and that's going to be with everybody. You're going to have your great friends that you really know them at their core, and you're going to have more acquaintances or friends you've met in passing. And that's going to be a thing. It's going to be tough, and you're going to have to develop that as it goes. I think at the end of the day, though, the bottom line is that if you believe in positivity and you believe in promoting equality, I don't think we should be afraid to express that. I think that's a good thought to put out there. And if people are going to hate on you for that, maybe that's not a person you want to have. Maybe it's a person that it shouldn't be part of your friend group.
Or it's kept at arm's length. Yeah. It's not just an instant, I had to learn that lesson with my own things. It's not an instant take an axe to everybody. Listen to your ears and understand that it's not just a binary system of you're in my bubble or you're out of my bubble. You can keep people at arm's length. You can create barriers and boundaries, and that's in a healthy way. And that's part of it. Understand that you have a toolbox and not just a simple switch.
There's a lot to pick up, and there's a lot to grow. Everybody's going to be individual. But at the end of the day, I think the biggest takeaways from this is take care of yourself. Know that you don't have to change the world. Know that by influencing your personal bubble, you are making change in the world. And by doing all of this together, you are keeping friendship magic.
Always comes back. He's a true master of ceremonies. Always brings it back. He says the title. He wins the podcast.
So we got to log off here in a minute, but I want to thank everybody for tuning in. You guys are amazing. TrotCon is and I don't just say this because I'm on it now. It's my favorite convention. I've been doing this for 4 years now. I will keep doing it until the day that this con dies. I love this community. You guys are wonderful, and I want to thank all of you for tuning in, for being a part of this, for believing in the messages of this. I want to thank my guests today, Kermit the Grog.
Thank you.
And RiftwingDesigns, who you can see tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. for, it's Luna Yoga, right? We're doing Luna this time? Luna Yoga, yes.
Are we doing lunar salutations again?
Yeah, just a couple.
Okay. I was going to say, I remember we did the Celestia, the Praise the Sun one.
The sun, I know sun salutations. I've done that a lot, and it was that one when those came up, like, ooh, this is different.
Mm-hmm.
Since it's 8 a.m., these are bedtime Luna salutations.
Mm-hmm. And this is streaming worldwide, so for some people it will be bedtime. But you can follow myself at KeepFriendMagic on Twitter.
At KeepFriendMagic.
Keeping Friendship Magic didn't fit.
I genuinely, I thought that was a flub. I thought that was a flub. I'm sorry.
It's at KeepFriendMagic.
KeepFriendMagic.
You can follow Riftwing here at RiftwingDesigns, if I'm correct.
Yes, thank you.
And stay tuned. If you want, you can always check out. Every once in a while, we do a little thing called Saturday or Sunday Smooth Stream. All of us have been part of it at one point or another. Usually my good friend here, Kermit the Grog, takes point in that. I believe it's on Twitch as SmoozeCo, if I'm not mistaken, is the URL. Yep. Twitch.tv/SmoozeCo.
And the next one will be.
We do it very sporadically. It's been something we just do every once in a while to get us through COVID.
Get some homies together, put some goal stuff. A good day of varied programming of all sorts of odds and ends. Learn how to cook, do some crafts, talk about some pop culture, get some funny people on. It's a good time. Stop on by.
So I'll be back at midnight tonight in 2.5 hours with Rift Ponies for Jackbox After Dark. You can check out, I'll be posting my schedule on Twitter. You can check it out on Facebook too. I'm part of too much this weekend, but you'll see me throughout. Otherwise, though, thank you all for tuning in. I love you guys, and remember to always keep friendship magic out there.
Bye.